right, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Deeks and Docs, the Wake Forest University Documentary Film Program podcast. I'm your host, Trey Calney. I'm sitting alongside Thomas Espy, our co-host and producer, and we have two very special guests who I'm going to let introduce themselves. Take it away.
My name is Dominic Silva. I'm a third-year MFA student here at the Documentary Film Program.
And I'm Stan Wright, another third-year MFA degree candidate, and Dom and I are working on this project called Original Body of Pain, which is our documentary thesis film.
So, guys, talk to me a little bit about what Original Body of Pain is. Just talk to me how you came across the idea.
So Original Body of Pain is a roughly 45-minute short documentary about the opioid crisis set in Nashville and featuring women who either are going through pregnancy and birth to a baby that has a drug exposure or have in the past, and also looking at the medical side through this home nurse named Joanna who goes into the homes of these children after they're born to kind of like assess development and see how they're progressing. And so it's half like the title Original Body of Pain alludes to that like physical or mental trauma that we all have sometimes from childhood, but especially addicts have, that kind of informs and contributes to their drug use and their already addictive personalities.
Great. Well, it's great to have you guys on. Like I said, this is our first episode. Thomas and I started this as an opportunity to give filmmakers a chance to kind of casually talk about their film. We do a lot of pitching, we do a lot of formal critiquing, but I don't think we get to sit here as colleagues and kind of share, you know, what the process has been like and what it's like to deal with sometimes very hard-hitting films, which is what yours is about. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about why this subject appealed to you guys.
I think Dom and I both have very unique ends to this subject, and neither of us, if I can speak for you, I think necessarily thought this is what we'd be making a film about. So when I was applying to grad schools, I was looking at Syracuse University and here at Wake Forest, and one of the reasons I came here is because my aunt is a nurse practitioner, nurse researcher in Asheville, North Carolina, and kind of had in the back of my mind, like, hey, I have this project that, you know, you're going to get some incredible access to if you ever are in the area to make this. And so when I ended up coming here, it was, you know, at the top of my list for things I wanted to do for my thesis film, and luckily we got Dom on board. So it's been an educational experience for both of us to get to where we are now in terms of our advocacy for the issue and also just our knowledge and passion for what we're doing as a film.
So before you even came here, did you think this was the film you were going to make, or did you have other ideas kind of floating in your head?
Yeah, this was kind of it for me. This is one of the main reasons I came here. I had no idea that it would be what it is now for us, and I had no concept, if you had asked me 3 years ago, if we would have filmed a birth or gotten to meet these incredible women or followed them longitudinally for a year, I would have said, you're crazy. But so yeah, this was pretty much it, but I didn't know what it was going to become. So,
well, we've definitely become friends with all the characters we have in this film. We're in contact with them constantly, and they've grown to become like really close to us, and they're probably the biggest motivation to tell their story, to get it out there and show that these people are people. They're not this one thing that you may see on the news or hear on Facebook or whatever. So that's one of the biggest things.
Well, and that's what I think you guys have done a really good job. I saw, you know, the clips you shared with me, and I think you guys do a really good job of putting a face to these people, because you hear about the opioid crisis, you know, all across America, and you hear kind of how messed up it is, but you don't really know who the people are. You just kind of know the big business aspects of it, but you don't know the people. And when you think addict, I think one of your characters, you know, said it really well, Ashley, in the opening that you shared with me. She talks about you don't really know God until you feel it, and you don't know addiction until you feel it. So just making sure that the characters in your film have human faces. How did you go about that to kind of make sure it's not just an addiction film and that the audience will relate to them?
Yeah, so I think a lot of films, it's funny, and not funny is the wrong word. It's kind of tragic, and it's like tragedy porn, a lot of what you see about addiction on HBO or Netflix, and I think it's very easy to paint a picture of a crisis that's very salacious, and it kind of delves into the territory of like deviant behavior, and we like to see people who would do things that we'd never consider doing or never have, you know, it's very foreign. And so I think by focusing the film around the people who actually suffer through this issue instead of just kind of the culture around it and like the salaciousness of it is kind of been from the inception like what we've wanted to do with this film. I think it's been an evolving the reason that we're making this film has evolved. And I think initially it was because I've always been interested in social issue films. I think Dom...
this definitely opened my eyes to social issue filmmaking. I came to this program 100% dead set on wanting to work in professional sports and sports storytelling. And the 2 films I pitched previously didn't come through, and it was kind of hard to do. And once Stan brought me on, it's like this... There were a few moments throughout the film where I was like, this is what I want to do. Like capturing these real life moments. And so I'm pretty grateful for that.
So has this film like shifted what you want to do professionally, do you think?
To an extent, yeah, definitely. I could see myself finding a balance between both sports and social issue. We'll see what the future holds, but who knows?
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite moments that you captured, or like your top moment?
I think the first thing was seeing a child be born, and that was just never witnessing that first person being able to shoot it was kind of interesting, because after the fact, it was like, we always talk about this, like if there's like a disconnect. And then Stan and I were both watching the footage back that night afterwards, and it was just like, oh my God, we shot this. And it was crazy because you're so in the moment and it's not, you don't realize it. And afterwards, it was like, what we got out of that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I would say the birth. And then like there's so many life milestones that these people have gone through, because I think one of the things we're doing is showing them outside of their addictions or outside of their recovery, but as just families. And so we followed the Raimi family. Ashley is one of our main characters for almost approaching a year now. And we've seen her youngest son, Billy, grow and start walking. We've been to birthday parties and graduations. And so like, it's really hard to separate our own experiences of the past couple of years making this film from our characters, because we just feel so invested. And so those have been some of the stuff that are less pivotal for our film, but just like emotionally kind of important to us that we've done. So. And
Ashley is the mother of the football player that you guys opened the film with. So you get a little bit of sports in there too.
Yeah.
For you, Dom. So you talked about being there for like milestone moments, but you're also making a film. You are filmmakers, and you want to do your best to kind of capture what is happening. And I remember you were, our teacher assistant last year in the ethics class. What has it been like to be present when things are kind of going wrong, but not being able to intervene or choosing not to intervene? How do you kind of walk that line?
So, without giving too much away, because we have recently encountered an incident with our character where there was a slip up, and we kind of went into this film thinking we were working with recovering addicts. So we had a lot of the discussions when we were in our own ethics class about, should we carry Narcan, which is like a revival drug for people who overdose? Should we, like, would we shoot someone shooting up? Like these kind of conversations, because it's very prescient, it's very real. Like relapse is so much a part of the experience of an addict, even if they're in recovery. So all things we thought about initially, but then kind of backed off from once we met these women and saw, at least naively from the outset, that they were doing well, quote unquote, whatever that means.
Right.
And so I think it's evolved, and there have been some trials, and each of them has had their own, some semblance of a relapse. It's a kind of it's a big word, because, like, do you consider smoking a joint a relapse in the same way that, shooting heroin might be? But we've never had the option yet. I think, what would we say if, like, I don't think we'd feel comfortable showing someone.
After knowing the story that we have now and that the characters we have, it wouldn't benefit the film or us. Like it wouldn't add or take away anything to this. Like, I don't think.
I think what you see too often is the drug abuse, quote unquote, in the act of it, and almost at the expense of the humanity of the person behind it. And one thing we've learned through making this film is like the decision to use is a split-second decision so often, and the calamity of the aftermath is not always thought about. So by just showing the using and not showing the culture or the family around that, you're really doing a disservice to this person who's really struggled with something that a lot of us can't even understand. So I think it's been a conscious choice to maybe not include that if we had the chance to.
We talked a little bit about, your favorite moments, if that's what you would call it, but you guys also recently received some money to make this film happen. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So kind of to preface, one of the things that we've kind of come to bat with our faculty about is like the difficulty of student filmmakers to get grant money and looking for pockets of money that are allotted to student filmmakers. So we're lucky enough to have the Center for Bioethics, Health, and Society here at Wake Forest that has helped fund outreach and educational materials for previous DFP alum thesis films. And so we went out for that grant. It's focused on issues of bioethics, so like the intersection of healthcare and some sort of ethical like consideration. And so we kind of figured our film was perfect and fit the bill because there's so much, like our topic and our characters is so rife with judgment, and I think this is an aspect of the epidemic that's like subject to such harsh criticism because there are children involved. So we kind of highlighted those aspects of our film and those discussions in applying for this grant, and we were lucky enough to receive $5,000 that we're going to hopefully use to build an educational packet so that we can kind of re-educate nurses and also nursing students potentially about like why these women deserve compassion, basically. So we're still applying to grants for the actual post-production costs, but it's been great to like start working on the outreach component even though we're not there yet. So
yeah, I think that's been one of the like overarching themes that we've encountered with every subject that we have, and some of the girls that aren't subject that we've just met who are in recovery, is that even though some medical professionals are trained in it, there's always that sense a lot of them have experienced judgment from medical professionals, and that's doing no good. There's no benefit from any of that. So if we can do anything to help, it'd be worth it.
So is that where you see the film maybe ultimately living, is as a educational tool for medical professionals?
I think it definitely has a life there in the educational realm. Obviously, we hope it gets out to the public more than just an educational run, but yeah, we think that it could live there for sure.
Does it feel like when nurses and doctors encounter you, they're like, oh, these guys are just making a home movie? Is that like kind of what they're doing?
Well, actually, we had a kind of, so just kind of like reiterate the day, or like kind of describe the scene, the day that we shot the birth. There were a lot of extra people in that room with our subject, and she had already confirmed that we were cool to shoot, but because it was a high-risk pregnancy and birth, and because it was her 5th child, there were neonatal people in there. There was a doula. There was NICU people. There was an extra photographer. So like that room was packed. And one of the nurses, the one that was helping deliver, was very
just kind of standoffish
and stressed. And we granted like
it was understandable because that room was like packed full of people, and
no one knew really we were coming that day because like she had gone into labor, quote unquote labor, Braxton Hicks contractions a week earlier.
Yeah, she went in. She was going to be induced Monday. I think it was like the 28th of August.
She had already been to the hospital once.
Yeah.
And so we kind of had a game plan set up, but the floor nurses didn't know we were coming, basically. So we had kind of like the higher ups approval, but that didn't mean that the individual floor nurses knew why we were there, who we were, why we had cameras. All they knew is that like Lisa was consenting. So it actually, when I went back to get the consent after the birth, like I came back to the hospital and she revealed to us that she thought she had a really bad experience with a teen mom crew. And she didn't know what we were doing or why we were there. And she just, that was part of her reasoning for being kind of standoffish. So it's not that they didn't think it was going anywhere. It's just like that their last experience was with some MTV show. So, but
yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that nurse, what a biography she has. Dealing with teen mom and then the DFP students coming through. Well, I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned consent, and I'm not doing a film about filming in hospitals and the opioid addiction, and I just imagine that's really tough to get consent. Has it been?
Oh yeah. We didn't meet one of our main characters until last April, and so that was second semester of second year. And
we'll tell them what our second year was like.
So yeah, basically our second year, I came onto this project October of 2016, and we knew we wanted to do a verite film on this, and we had gone and went to what is Inside called?
Like a women's recovery center.
And we had done interviews with certain characters, and we had potential people that we liked their stories, and they had real interesting stories, and wanted to follow them, and then usually it'd fall through, and we didn't find. It was until late April when we met Ashley of 2017. So the way we kind of got the way we found Ashley was through another home nurse, not Joanna. Her name is Jennings. She gave us a call one day, and she's connected through the same home health office that Joanna's working in. She said she has a candidate who's willing to talk on camera and just to talk to us and see our perspective and like what we want this film to be. And then we met Ashley and have never looked back, and it was.
But yeah, like backtracking, it was like our whole second year, that first semester was like a bunch of hurry up and wait. Because as you said, Trey, it's like you can't. HIPAA is a real concern for us as filmmakers doing a medical film, and you can't just approach people in hospitals or recovery centers and be like, "Are you addicted to drugs? Like, do you want to be on this film?" So everything we did was through a nurse. Basically getting us a contact or someone who worked in the healthcare industry, either at the women's shelter or Insight Human Services. So we had a lot of vetting and interviewing that had already been vetted. So these were people that were telling us who we could talk to. And that was really stressful for us because we didn't know if we were going to encounter people that kind of fit the bill for what we were trying to do. So it took the better part of our second year in this program just trying to cast this film.
So how many potential characters did you kind of work through before you landed on the 3 you have?
There were 2 solid characters that we wanted to follow, and then obviously Joanna. Joanna's been Joanna's been like a through line since. Stan filmed with Joanna originally in the spring of 2015, like the end of our first year project. Stan filmed. One of his assignments was filming with Joanna, so she's been there for throughout the whole time. But as far as finding women who have substance abuse issues, we had 2 that we had tried to shoot with, and it would never work out. Like we would show up and they wouldn't answer the phone. Something would always happen. It just took a while to find the right people.
And that's what the experience of being in active addiction is. It's like, it's a lot of flakiness and false starts. And so we kind of knew that was part of the package, but we obviously wanted to work with people who were in a better place to talk about their story. But we talked to 8 to 10 women, I would say, over the course of it.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, got lucky with Ashley's great because she has 3 children of 3 different ages who have all kind of been through some history of drug exposure. She's gone through domestic violence. She's lived in halfway homes and recovery homes with some of her children. So there's a lot of deep fractured relationships and a lot of trauma for everyone involved in that family. And I think hers is a story of self-reflection and trying to put the pieces of her life back together and kind of really cobble together a better life for her children than she has in the past. So she's able to talk about some of the experiences that women who go through the issues of opioid addiction and domestic violence in a really matter-of-fact and concise way that just, I think, informs our film so well.
And from a filmmaking standpoint, Ashley's been a blessing because she advocates for us. She has gotten us most of our access to the Mary Benson house, which was the recovery home she lived in. I don't think we would have gotten that being 2 males coming to a women's recovery home without Ashley's help. She let the people know like what we're doing, and then we finally got consent from almost everybody in that house to actually film without having to do like blur faces or do anything like that. We kind of wanted to keep it like as clean as possible, and we were straight up with everybody. But Ashley definitely helped us get into some spots, and then Ashley actually led us to Lisa. Lisa moved into the Mary Benson house about a week before Ashley graduated. So that was our connection to Lisa, and without Ashley, we probably wouldn't have a film of this magnitude.
Well, I want to go back to something you said, and then we'll kind of move on. But you guys pitched in New Orleans. You were selected to be DFP representatives to pitch there. And I remember, hearing that some of the feedback that you got was, why should 2 males be telling this story? Which, part of me, I understand why they asked that question, but I think at the end of the day, we're all outsiders from whatever film we're going to make, and somebody has to tell these stories, unless we just expect people to put GoPros on themselves and tell it themselves. But how would you respond to that? How did you respond if you did respond in New Orleans?
Go ahead.
So I've had some practice pitching this film. I've pitched it because initially I was a one-man band, and we pitched it to faculty a bunch, pitched and got runner-up at Pitch Fest and River Run last year, and then had the opportunity to go to New Orleans, and obviously our film's evolved since that. But I think I'll take the onus. Part of it was a misrepresentation of how entrenched we were with these characters. I think we only had 3 minutes to pitch. A minute of that was video. It looked very flashy. It looked very Vice. It looked very extractive, which is what the word that they use. So they were pretty, it was an all-female panel, and I don't blame them for the criticism that they had on us and what it looked like, but I just think that it was a missed opportunity, and I misrepresented kind of how deeply involved we were in these women's lives. And yeah, like, I agree with you, like, we're all outsiders, and the truth is that we've spent over a year listening to women who have gone through this, either from the healthcare perspective or women who've given birth and physically gone through it. And I think that the more that, which is what we try and do, we just shut up and listen. And we're, at the end of the day, we're editing it together, but it's our edit is informed by these experiences we've had. So
I think that experience in New Orleans really woke us up to, like, just be very conscious of what message we're putting out there and how it might play for different audiences who come from different backgrounds. So that's one of the biggest, like, it's as sad as it was not to, like, do well at that. It was a good learning experience at the same time.
For sure.
Well, from what I've seen, Original Body Pain looks great. You know, I wish you guys the best of luck as you wrap up your editing, and I know there will probably be more to be done even after you're gone, but I just think it does a really good job of touching on a crisis that everybody is aware of, but not everybody can put a face to. So congratulations for how far you guys have gotten so far. I did
second that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
I did want to talk real briefly, if you guys have some time, because there's another film that has garnered some critical acclaim that deals with the opioid crisis, but in a different way, and that is Heroin, which was nominated for an Oscar this year in the short form documentary category. And I was just curious, you know, what thoughts you guys might have. Personally, I did enjoy it. I think it had some really strong things. There are some things that I didn't like about it, but
What didn't you like about it?
Well, as we have talked about, Dom, I was not a huge fan of the judge because I don't think you get a good opportunity to see who she is outside of her courtroom. And going back to what you guys do so well, you humanize the people, whereas Heroin is the other side. You know, it's the fire chief, it's the judge, it's the Bible-beating lady who's driving around, you know, providing food. These aren't the addicts. Those aren't necessarily the people that need to be humanized. And when you just present them in a courtroom, I don't know, she always seemed to have a condescending smirk on her face, and maybe that's how you have to deal with addicts or people in your courtroom, but she just did not come across great to me.
I actually liked her. I think that, yeah, I agree with you, and these are not the characters that need to be humanized, but I think it's a well-constructed film, but it's each one of those women is immediately sympathetic because they're not the ones that used, so it's an easier leap for people to say, like, I can find an affinity for like a fire chief who's administering Narcan or a brown bag ministry lady who's giving out food and trying to, like, do her part, than it is necessarily to confront what that addict has gone through. So in that sense, I agree with you. But I do think showing the aspect of the drug court, which is such an important solution, I think, for what a lot of addicts go through. I mean, like, you have states like Tennessee that's, until 2016, in which the law was sunsetted, like, criminalizing women for exposing their babies to substances instead of trying to treat them and consider what's going on behind the scenes. So showing the drug court, I think, overall was a good move. I think that some of the issues you raised are valid, though. That's what
I was planning on saying too. It's like the way the court system's dealing with drug possession and the criminalization of the drug issue, showing the more progressive side, like that's West Virginia or Ohio?
It's West Virginia.
In West Virginia, that's like Stan said, it's becoming one of the better solutions, is working with them and trying to get them into treatment versus just throwing them in jail and then just perpetuating that cycle.
Yeah, because these women need, or not just women, but people in addiction need a plan, and they need social support. And those are the things that you don't get if you just throw someone in jail and make them detox. And one of our characters has actually gone through that. She was on a maintenance opioid to control her cravings, and then she got arrested for a probation lapse.
Which was just a change of address problem. She got thrown in prison. When she moved into her recovery home, she didn't go through the proper channels to get her address changed, and they issued a warrant and threw her in prison she missed Thanksgiving and Christmas for like 2.5 months.
And she, you know, they don't administer Subutex in prison, and then her baby had to withdraw. So a lot of bad things happened that weren't considered by just the locking her up. So.
And then just being in that environment of prison too, where there is drug use, and there's no benefit to non-violent addicts who could benefit better going through an actual recovery program versus just sitting in a cell for no reason.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. I mean, you know, she is obviously very concerned about them, and she's not just throwing them into jail. And you know, it's probably that element you always empathize with certain characters more than others, and I really empathize with the fire chief, the boots on the ground, going out there. And I was kind of wondering, are they trying to portray people as, you know, the villains or the not that, and maybe that's why. But I think you guys do make a really good point. She clearly is concerned. There were just certain shots of her where I was like, she feels like she thinks she's holier than thou.
Well, you just reminded me, one of the most crucial things that I saw in that film, which maybe it's because of our own experience making this documentary, when the fire chief is going out, she has all of these doses of Narcan, which, for those that don't know that are listening to this, maybe it's administered in like an electronic type shot, and it's very easy, and it's really made for the casual person. Even if you're not in an EMT, you could figure out how to use this and administer.
It's essentially supposed to be like comparable to an EpiPen. Like if you're there, if somebody's there overdose, anybody should be able to administer it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And there's this great scene of this fire chief going out and trying to go to local firehouses in this town that's like the worst hit by the American opioid epidemic, and being met with refusal. Like one of the firemen that she approaches asks if they're required to administer Narcan, which speaks volumes to me about how addicts are seen and what their lives are worth to some people out there.
Right.
And so that was kind of a crazy scene for me.
And then she's like in like a town council meeting or something similar, and the guy says, we're not going to administer it because we just think they'll do it down the line, so what's the point of saving them now? That was a really harsh scene.
And I just want to say, I did look that film up on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 100% fresh.
Whoa, watch out, lady
10
bird.
critics have reviewed this film. And the audience percentage is 65.
Dom and I were kind of split on the ending of that film.
She gets called out. So the ending, she gets called out, the fire chief, to like, in the middle of an interview to go save someone. And remind me what else.
I think that's pretty much it.
Dom, did you not like it?
I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just had a discussion, I think. For me, it's like the crisis isn't over, so you shouldn't like wrap up the film with a nice, neat bow. And so the fact that they interrupt an interview and she has to go out and do what she's done day in and day out for whoever knows how long was fitting to me. And Trey mentioned something. It's like she kind of pushing back at that idea of like, why should I administer Narcan if they're going to do it again? It's like, I forget her name, the fire chief, but her like ethos is basically like, I don't care if I have to administer it 50 times to the same person. Like if the 51st time they can get into treatment. And I think we need more people like that who are advocates of addicts and recovering addicts. So.
And when she's getting like the medal or the key to the city or whatever, she's getting that award, one of the people that she had saved is there and is like one of her biggest proponents. So, you know, I don't know. I thought it was a really, really well done film. I think it's different than what you guys are doing, but I would still recommend it, Thomas, if you haven't seen it. It's on Netflix. Check it out.
All right.
Before we get you guys out of here, it's Wednesday. Wednesday is typically my trivia day. I'm unfortunately not going to be there today. So, no! Chris Zaleski in the background.
Thank you, Chris.
Good to see you, Chris. So I'm going to let you guys be my guinea pigs. I'm testing out some trivia questions. It's our first episode. It has to deal with Famous First. You guys can either compete against each other or as a team. But I've got 7 trivia questions to ask you guys.
We'll go as a team because Stan will kill me in trivia.
As a team. All right. What is considered the first documentary?
Nanook, right?
Nanook of the North. Yes, it stands up. We would put it. There we go. There's our applause.
If we get it wrong, you got to go, no!
Have you seen it? I have not.
Oh, that wasn't part of your required viewing for Doc History?
But
I have
is
not
it a
watched Doc
documentary?
History yet.
But is it a documentary?
No, not documentary now. I'm talking about Cara Pilson's
No, I
Doc
haven't taken
History.
that yet.
He hasn't taken
I
that.
have to take it in the fall.
So you're behind.
He's a
I
late
get to watch
joiner.
that. Yeah, I'm a late joiner.
For
Did you
that
guys like
class.
it? Was it good? Will I enjoy it?
I liked it. I don't.
Okay.
It kept me. I watched it.
Got a big head shake.
It was better than Snow
It was
Dogs.
better than Rain.
Better than Snow
It was
Dogs?
better than Rain.
Considering when it was shot and what it was shot on, and the fact that it's 180 years old or
But
something,
But is it a documentary?
It's 4,000 years
How
old.
many?
kept my attention.
How many people can you fit in a canoe? That's not a documentary.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know. I think that's actually a very compelling
25,
topic.
25 people.
Well,
I think-
I'm excited to see it. Second question. Also in movies, what was the first film to be presented as a talkie? So we're out of the silent picture phase. We're talking talkies. I have 3 options if you need them. You need multiple choice. You just let me know.
What year are we talking?
We're talking like 1927.
Give us the options.
You got Wings, The Jazz Singer, and Me Talk Pretty One Day.
Jazz Singer.
That's correct. You're 2 for 2. Nice. I have not seen it, and I don't plan to. Question number 3.
Here's the sports one. I'll just sit back.
When New Mexico State beats Clemson this year, you heard that. When they beat them, it will be their first NCAA tournament victory since 1993. Who did they beat that year?
Considering I was 1 year old.
You should know that then. I have 3 options if you want them.
I'll take the options. What are they?
New Mexico, Nebraska, or North Carolina?
I knew it was an N. I want to say Nebraska.
You are correct.
Yeah.
3 for 3. I will say.
I was thinking in my head, if I didn't ask for the option, I would have said Nevada. I knew it was an N, but
Did you like how I gave you all N options?
UNM's not making the tournament.
Oh, well.
Just kidding.
I will say, I think ESPN is trolling New Mexico State fans because it lists like their tournament history, and it already lists them as 0-1 in 2018. Already. They haven't even played the game. They're listed as 0-1, like they lost.
Let
to
it be
Clemson.
heard today. This is the year that New Mexico State wins a bowl game and makes the Final Four.
We certainly heard it here. Question number 4. List the first presidents to live. So there's the first president that lived in the White House and the first president to die in the White House. It's not the same person. It's 2. And I'm not going to give you options here because there's only 45.
Okay, so it was the second president, right?
If you know his name, you're right.
Yeah. John Adams.
Correct. You
And
got
then
one.
I just remember someone like getting stuck in a bathtub, but he didn't die in the bathtub, right? Was that Coolidge?
No, I don't think this. Well, he might have died in a bathtub.
It was before JFK, right?
Yeah.
Garfield.
Garfield did die while in the White House, but it's not him.
Oh, okay, that's all I got.
You have any guesses? No. It's William Henry Harrison.
I never would have
Oh,
gotten
that's
that.
right. The shortest. Yeah.
Yeah, he gave that really long inaugural speech.
There's a whole Parks and Rec episode. Speaking of things that are moving pictures about him. Anyway, yep, I should have known that.
That's a good episode.
Yeah.
All right, number 5. Anne Dunwoody has the distinction of being the first American what?
Name?
Anne Dunwoody.
I'm assuming it has to do with film.
Nope.
Oh, then.
We moved away from the film.
I was thinking lumberjack.
No. No. And it's famous because she's a female too, so she's the
Right.
first female American. I don't think you're gonna get it, so I'll just tell you.
It's probably best.
It's the 4-star general, the first American.
How do
4-star
you not
general.
know that?
Because I am the worst military brat ever.
Oh, you're military.
his
Not
dad
really,
is
not-
an admiral.
Oh.
Let's not advertise. Let's just get this part
Well,
out.
a general would be army, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Moving
not
on.
my branch.
On a completely related topic, this is question number 6. What was the original mascot for Trix cereal? And it wasn't the rabbit, but it was an animal.
That narrows it down.
Is it an animal that's been featured in other cereals?
Not that I am aware of. It's a very distinct animal.
Again, that narrows it down.
I think
Think pink, maybe?
the
Not the Pink Panther,
Pink
no.
Panther.
No.
What's too distinct? Pink. Flamingo.
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 Oh, yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
Shout out
Yeah.
Chris Zaleski.
Thanks for like just the softballs here.
Yeah.
Speaking
Well,
of
hey, we gave you 3 easy ones that you got right.
No, that was very
All right. Here's your final question. And I think you'll get this right. What were your first impressions of each other?
Oh man.
I remember the first thing I said to Stan was he was like, oh, like we were talking about San Diego because that's where he's from. I was like, oh, Chargers, and he's like, I don't do sports. I was like, all right, well, all right.
Well, they're not there
It's like-
anymore, so.
yeah.
It's like, we're not going to have anything in common. No, I remember Dom walking into our orientation, and I just saw, like, you had, like, the Guy Fieri sunglasses in the back of your head, and I was like, here we go. But luckily, first impressions aren't that important.
Yeah. Yeah, we worked on a couple projects during our first year and realized that it's like, yeah, we'd be a good team.
Remember that seminal ceramic film we made? Or no,
Yeah,
it was glass blowing.
glass blowing
yeah.
and Muay Thai. Made a Muay Thai film.
Well, that will be for the next
That's
podcast.
for the next-
GFP
we'll
history,
talk
yeah.
about glass
I look forward to
blowing
seeing
and
you
Muay
guys
Thai.
in a year and a half.
Yeah,
when you
you'll
invite
be
us
back.
Yeah.
You'll be back.
We hope so. Can I plug it?
Yeah, plug it. Plug
Um,
it. This is recommendation corner, so if you want to plug your own film, do that too.
So originalbodyofpain.film is our website, and then we are on facebook.com/
Original Body of Pain film.
and Twitter OBP documentary. So
Like
Yes,
and
please.
share.
You wanted film recommendations?
Yeah, any recommendations you got? This is recommendation roundup.
Me and Stan were fighting about this because at the New Orleans Film Festival, I got to see Quest, a documentary. It's a portrait of a family and growing up in Philadelphia. They follow them for over 8 years. It's an incredible story. Don't really want to give away anything, but Quest, go watch it.
Quest, Quest.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, like as if we need another reason to be into like longitudinal documentary. That's like the best
That-
example out there.
Yeah, that was like, okay, yeah, we can follow these families for like maybe another 5 years and see what happens. Why not?
And is that like released like wide yet, or is that only New Orleans that you said, so it'll come out soon?
I
If-
saw
I
it at
think it's-
River Run, and I
Okay.
think
It might
I don't know where it is. but
might be
go-
on Amazon.
There's a website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quest, got it.
I'm gonna say Stories We Tell for a kind of different style of documentary. It's kind of another family portrait. A daughter is trying to figure out who her father is and kind of delving into her family history through the use of some archival but also reenactments, and they kind of blend together seamlessly. And it's again a film that I can't really talk about without revealing how it ends, but it's one of my favorites.
Stories We Tell. Do you know where you can check that one out?
It was on Netflix for a while.
Okay.
It's on the interwebs, I assume.
Okay.
It looks like Quest is on Amazon Channels and CBS All Access.
It's worth buying it if you have to pay for
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Access. All right. Thomas, you got any recommendations you want to share?
Human Kaleidoscope.
I'd say the last film I saw was pretty good. It's not documentary.
That's fine.
It's called Thoroughbreds.
Playing an Aperture right now, yeah?
Yeah, I saw it at the Red Cinema in Greensboro because I feel like I'm really old in Aperture. I can't hear anything, so I don't know.
It's one of our sponsorships. What are you doing?
It's not a
You
documentary.
hear that sound? It's us losing all our money. Yeah.
I saw. I can't even do it now. Yeah, so I saw a film that it's not a documentary. I saw it at Aperture in Winston-Salem. It's called Thoroughbreds.
Did you really just lie and plug Aperture?
This is a very
Aperture is
dishonest
Wait,
podcast.
can I not say that?
Aperture is great. We all love Aperture.
Let's just do one for the hell of it.
What's that?
Do it one more time, just for the hell of it.
Okay.
None of this is getting cut, by the way.
Ask me again.
Hey, Thomas, seen any good films? Maybe at Aperture?
Yeah, so I saw a film that's not a documentary, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's called Thoroughbreds.
Where'd you see it?
I saw the film at Red Cinemas in Greensboro. I used my movie pass, so
I love Movie
this is like
Pass.
my 15th film of the year. If
at
anybody
22.
if you haven't heard of Movie Pass, I recommend it. $10 a month for 12 months, and you can go to one movie a day.
They're actually not a sponsor, but
Not yet.
Now they are.
Not yet. It has a very unique look to it, and the story, it's kind of like by the book, but it's pretty interesting. It kept me invested in the story the whole time. I can't ask for more, I guess.
Well, I plan to see that with my movie pass at Aperture this week.
All right.
I'm looking forward to that. My recommendation is probably my favorite doc that I've seen recently. I talk about it a lot in various classes, but Red Army, I don't know if you guys seen it, but it's essentially the Miracle on Ice story, but told from the Russian point of view. Those guys were actually in the Army, like as hockey players, which just baffles me. And there's bears playing hockey in it, so that's pretty cool. Well, I think we've gone well over what I thought we would. I want to thank Dom and Stan again for being here. Do you guys want to plug your film one more time?
You can see Original Body of Pain hopefully at a festival near you in 2019. For now, go to originalbodyofpain.film or find us on Facebook and Twitter. The documentary is called Original Body of Pain. Also, if you're hiring and you're a production company, my name is Stan and I live in Winston-Salem and I really want a job. So.
And just address the envelope that way. Stan lives in Winston-Salem.
Willing to relocate.
Anything from you, Dom?
No, Stan pretty much summed it up. I think we're good.
Great. Well, this has been the first episode of Deeks and Docs. You can check us out online at deeksanddocs.com. We're also going to be on iTunes and get your podcast from there soon, we hope. But thanks so much for listening. Stan, Dom, thanks for being here. Thomas, great to work with you. Chris, hello, goodbye.
If you haven't seen Wagon Masters, it's also a great film.
Oh, that's actually my recommendation.
Wagon Masters was all our recommendations.
That was all of our
Go see Wagon Masters.